Hello and welcome back to the Force Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Dylan Sanders. And me today is Brandon Olsen. You can find Twitter at Dylan Sanders. You can find Brandon on Twitter at WNS under Brandon. And then we're also joined by special guest Joey Blount of formerly, I guess now of Virginia, going into the NFL. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, man. Blessed to be here. Thankful for the opportunity.
Yeah, of course. Where can they find you on like Twitter and Instagram and stuff like that?
My Twitter is Joey Blount 8, all one word. Instagram is jblunt29.
Nice. So what has your pre-draft process been like over the past couple months?
So originally, right after the season ended, I went home for a bit, just seeing my parents, my family. But then I kind of transited out here to Austin, Texas, where I am now, doing, pro day training for the last two-ish months. So been out here since mid-January, and my pro coming up in 2 weeks. So I've been training 5 or 6 week preparation for one day.
I mean, yeah, that's crazy. Do you have anything like you have anything you expect to do at your pro day? Get some eyes?
Yeah, I think the biggest question asked about myself is my straight line. So I'm looking to run a good 40 to really, answer those questions that are kind of raised. So and also just performing well in my defensive back drills. I have good hips, good breaks, all around testing day for myself, put up some good numbers.
Yeah, I mean, and so people think like this isn't like the craziest athletic safety class that we've gotten. So if you can put yourself as an outlier, it would definitely give you an edge up against like even like the top safeties like Kyle Hamilton ran a 4.6. Mm-hmm. So like any edge you can to make yourself stand out is pretty big.
Absolutely.
What kind of, or does it add a chip to your shoulder that just knowing that you were one of the combine snubs, I guess? Because I'll say I think the combine selection this year was rough. I'll use that word, as some of the guys that did get invited wasn't super into it. But does that add a certain chip to your shoulder that you were one of the people that weren't invited?
Definitely adds a chip to my shoulder. Yep, I always watched the combine, wanted to be there one day when time came. And I'm not going to dock anyone who was invited, because I think there's, everyone has opportunity. Their card drawn, mine didn't. But in the same aspect, I just kind of use it to propel myself forward and use that as fuel. Kind of just measure myself where those, those top guys were picked, see where my numbers lie, where I am in my training. And for the guys that were there, also, like, congratulations to them. Like, that's opportunity that I bet they also dreamed about being there. So can't even be mad. Not jealous at all, but definitely adds a little fuel to my fire, knowing that I could have definitely been there performing.
So you're from Atlanta. Your dad was also from Atlanta. He went to Virginia. So you went to Virginia. What's that like? What's your recruitment like coming out of school? And what made you pick Virginia?
Yeah, so my recruiting out of high school was kind of, funny, because I went to, in Georgia, there's pretty sure 7 classifications. And I went to the smallest one, which is 1A private. And, the private school football is great, but also it's not a lot of exposure. You have here and there who, break out of the limelight and get the national coverage, but I wasn't with them. And, that was just a struggle of adversity I faced, and, preparing myself, working as hard as I did in high school and going to all these camps and stuff, but not really getting my shot called, not getting the coverage or recruitment I thought I deserved. So it wasn't until my junior year in the spring where I had gone to like some college camps. Obviously, when I moved out here to the East Coast, my dad went up to a UVA camp on our little college camp tour. And back then it was different staff. So it was like the Mike London, Tenuta, Chip West were the coaches back then. And went out there, performed really well. Thought I was out there. I was probably like a sophomore, junior when I went to but I was keeping in touch, how recruiting was. The whole staff got kind of replaced, cleaned house. So I thought my ties to UVA were kind of gone. My dad, obviously, he's played there and he didn't have any connections there. And I really wasn't trying to rely on, my dad to get me a scholarship because that's not who I am as a person. But that was just kind of in the back of my mind. I was kind of moving on some smaller schools, thinking like FCS, maybe some, even smaller FBS schools. But then when the new staff came in, I remember being on vacation with my family, and my parents got an email from this guy named Nick Howell, who I had no idea who that was, but he was the incoming or defensive back coach at UVA. And he liked his film, liked my film, liked what he saw from the old staff, what they had of me. And, they wanted me to get on a conversation with the head coach. I did that, ended up getting the offer. So UVA, my first offer in high school, which was speechless, emotions, everything you could imagine. Not only that, just being a dad school, but once you get the first one out the way, a lot of weight off your shoulders for the next level of education, thinking about college, especially with UVA. Being the first one, I feel like that opened a lot of doors for me, and a lot of the burden was off my back from my family. And from there, UVA was my first big offer, and then I got some other, smaller schools that came around. They were offering me, but my junior summer going into my senior year, I ended up playing for the Cam Newton 7-on-7 team. And I was with guys that were 5-star, 4-star guys going to Georgia, Alabama, like big school around the country. And I was an overlooked guy, so I was performing on a level of their stature and tournament, and I performed really well. And that kind of got some buzz on my name. Actually, Cam Newton put his name out to me and got me a visit with Auburn with Gus Malzahn when he was there. So that was a cool experience. But once I made my commitment to UVA, I wasn't trying to go back on that. It was my word, and I gave UVA that. So even though Auburn was there and they wanted me to flip, but I couldn't do that. I didn't feel comfortable. So once I stuck with UVA was my school.
Well, I mean, hey, it worked out.
Definitely did.
And that's how your college career started, and I love how your college career ended, because you played in the Hula Bowl, and the way that ended was great, especially for me because you could see the background Florida stuff. And in the Hula Bowl, you got the game-sealing interception off of Florida State's quarterback McKenzie Milton. So, just what was that like?
That was a great week in itself. A big thing as a senior or the draft, you really want to get into like an all-star game, whatever sort it is. And I was praying on that. I really wanted a game, and being able to be a late additional. That was awesome. Prayers were answered on that for sure. And going throughout the whole game, my buddy Carpenter, he plays with Georgia Tech, and I had another friend, Georgia State, Taylor Hawk, but we were just talking on the sideline, and they got interceptions already in the game. I was telling them, like, I got to get me one. Like, it's not us, we all get one. So that reason we went in, I told him I want to get interception, and was in the right place at the right time, right read, great by the defensive coordinator. And seal that off in that manner in an all-star game was a great feeling, especially with someone like McKenzie Milton, high-touted guy, playing at his home, UCF. So that was a really cool experience for sure.
What was the whole Hula Bowl like? I actually haven't never talked to someone that like went through that. What is it like?
So yeah, pretty much like the first day you get there is kind of orientation things. You're kind of meeting your height, weight, not even height, weight, or your bags, your gear, kind of situating yourself. And then they have a big team meeting for us. Then like pretty much the next day you're jumping into like defensive meetings, practices, competition. And, that was the most important part, I feel like, was practices, because that's where the scouts were watching you perform, watching you in your element, seeing how you move, seeing how you break, how you flip hip, how you catch ball. So those are great days, opportunities, and I feel like I capitalized on every day I had. Went out there, had great practices. They were hard practices, and it wasn't like we're back at so you can get the best recoveries. It was just day in, day out. Got to work, got to grind. They took us out to eat. They got us food. Went to a banquet one night, so it was a great experience. Definitely worthwhile for sure.
How would you describe your skill set to an NFL team?
My skill set, I would say, is adaptable to what is needed to do. In college, I was exposed to a lot of different types of play, especially in my position at safety. Playing too high, played a half, played a third, box, playing in the slot, playing the box, like forcing runs, fitting runs, doing a little bit of everything. So I feel like my skill set's adaptable, and a playmaker said that with my instincts and the game that I can place myself around the ball to not only make tackles, but to get my hands in the balls or putting my hand on the ball, force turnovers and other things like that. Pause on that, but yeah.
I mean, yeah, you look through your your career, like have 4 fumbles, pass deflections, interceptions, sacks, tackles for loss. Yeah, you kind of just set yourself up for success.
Yeah. The name of the game at this point. I think the next level is all about turnovers. And it's not about, something I had learned as well was I feel like that I'm a great tackler. Even with that, I miss some, but just the numbers itself, I got to be better. I'm securing my tackles, but in that, I think I'm a great tackler. But that's not the name of the game anymore. The name of the game is covering and interception. So that was something I was working on, just turnovers in general, forcing fumbles, sacks, interceptions, pass deflections, things of that nature, to really show the full skill set that I have.
Are there any NFL players that you kind of try to model your game after?
A couple. It's hard because everyone is so unique in their own. It's hard to say one person, but a few that I really like. I love Ed Reed's range. That's what you got to have in the deep post or after the field, be a rangy guy. Matthew, his knowledge, his instincts is something that I really resonate with and I see myself playing as. Also like Justin Simmons, Jesse Bates, those type of guys who just playmakers back there that, it seems like when there's a play needed to be made, guys coming up with those plays. So kind of up to all those guys are, kind of what I see myself as well. Then, some Jamal Adams in me with playing in the box, taking blocks, being more of a run heavy type of guy. And yeah, like anything really.
Yeah. If you can tell us, have you been speaking to NFL teams? What has that been like? And are standout meetings that you've had?
I was to during the Hula Bowl. I haven't recently been in any. But yeah, I talked to a handful of teams. I'm probably not going to get in the depth of all teams I talked to, but I guess one of the meetings that really got to me the most was with, the Chargers. Having 2 previous teammates that went to the Chargers, they really were locked in with UVA athletes or players. And one scout that I was talking to really had been watching me for years and kind of saw my growth and maturity level as a player and the things that I want on my own personal, accord, and just testing my knowledge of the game, asking me to write up some coverages, some defenses, how would I react to that? And that's something that's big, able to catch on to schemes, defensive books, and that's something that I'm really good at, numbers, and something that, kind of comes natural to me. Defensive concepts have always been taught since a young age through my dad, but I would say just because they really understood and, it seems like they've been paying attention to me for a while. They're just testing, they like what I do on the field. There's a lot of encouragement, some good feedback, but all being critical and some good constructive as well, what things I can be better at. And that's all I ask of teams. It's not all about the good things you can do, but also I want to work on the things that I need to be better at as well.
Yeah, and I mean, you just mentioned your dad and like him helping you, and so what does it mean for you? Because you will be the second generation in your family that's going to be in the NFL. Because your dad was a Giant in the '80s, which is my favorite team, so that's awesome. But what does that mean for you to be able to kind of continue that line now?
It's really like cool. I feel like cool is such a lame adjective to use, but it's more profound than that just because it's a deep connection that me and my dad are going to share. Football in itself is something that has always kept me and my dad close because we bonded over that. But as the years gone by and I've gotten older, we've kind of moved our relationship away from football. And it's more that, as a child, you grow, you're a parent for so long. And then at some point, you're not being parented anymore, and that's how I feel with him being a coach. My dad coached me when I was younger, was always involved in my football stuff. But when I got to college, it kind of changed where he was, a coach from afar, then a critique, and now really just been my friend, just a friend on the field. If I ever needed questions or, I'm kind of some stuff or needed to be simplified, I can go to my dad and we'll just chop it up real quick. But now is not just based on football. It's just a loving connection that I can share with him. Me being the second generation going to the NFL, being in the NFL is just more so it's cool on the fact that I can share that with my dad.
Well, do you have a favorite on the field moment from your time at Virginia?
Favorite field moment? I would have to say, honestly, for me personally, when we beat Florida, what was that, 2019? Yeah, 2019. When we beat it home, it was upset. And I remember Cam Akers was a dog. Like, he is a dog, and he was pretty much the only all game. And we were going back and forth. And pretty much it was our defense or offense last drive of the game for them to win. We had two PI calls that could have went both ways, and they ended up kind of driving on us, and they were doing a hurry up, and Cam Akers had the ball, and he was trying to run it in, and Bryce Hall and myself, we kind of stopped him right there on the 1 yard line, 2 yard line, and his forearm was down. So they called the game on that. And I remember just kind of being on my knees, just looking at the clock, and everyone stormed the field, and I start running, and I'm being hugged by fans and tackled and stuff like that. So that was definitely a surreal moment on the field myself, just being a part of the last play of the game.
I've always wanted to experience storming the field.
Yeah.
We got so close. I was at Tulane, Cincinnati this year. Just, man, I was like, well, if Tulane pulls this off, I'm running out of the game. Yeah. That seems like it would be a France. But yeah, I remember the Florida State game. That was crazy.
Yeah, I was a part of one field storming when I went to Toledo for my first 2 years of college, and we hosted Iowa State. The game went into double overtime, and right in front of the student section was where Iowa State needed to score in order to send it to a third overtime. And I remember people were coming. I would always sit front row of the student section because it was free to go in. It's just if you get there, you go. So I'm front row, and people started climbing down a little bit, and security started piling in front of us, and I was like, "What is everybody like? Why is security being so hard about this?" An incomplete pass, and I just saw people start leaping over the front gate, and I was like, "Well, hell, we're doing it!" And so I just remember it was a blur after that.
Yeah. I've had 3 storms. Yeah, 3 field storms at UV.
That's crazy. That y'all just be doing it. Is there a big fine?
I don't know. I remember the first one was my first college. We beat Georgia Tech, and that was our first time being bowl eligible in years. So obviously that was a big day. The Florida State won, Virginia Tech to win the Coastal, and then when the Commonwealth Cup beat Virginia Tech, home state rival. So those three were huge.
Yeah, I think in the SEC they charge like $100,000. Like it's like $100,000 fine if you storm the field, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Do you have any like non-football plans like adjacent to your career that you like to focus on off the field?
Adjacent to my career?
Yeah.
These questions always can get you in trouble, but I'll tell y'all. Yeah, adjacent to my career, I would definitely want to like look at real estate stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Passive income is huge. My mom and dad are working real estate, so I've been kind of, highlighted and kind of seeing the other side of the door, peek through a couple of times with them and work. So just kind of understanding that type of business, and real estate is just such a lucrative business that anyone can get into just with taking a test, doing some work, and you're kind of making money on that. So definitely want to learn about more real estate things, dip my toes in there, get some properties, invest in some things when the money is available. But also, I guess the dream at the end of it all would be some type of sports broadcasting for interviews. I like talking to new people, so especially about sports, something like y'all are doing right now, honestly.
Yeah, that's what I'm in school for. So
you in journalism or broadcasting?
Journalism, and journalism and broadcast journalism.
Okay.
Kind of this similar. LSU has like the full journalism school that they put you through the room for the student paper and stuff like that. So
awesome.
It's a ton. And Brandon, you had the.
I was also gonna say, I don't know if you've ever watched, like GQ does these things.
Brandon?
How I spent my first. GQ does like the how I spent my first $1 million. And you mentioned real estate, and in Austin Eckler's video, he talks about how his mom works in real estate, and that was like a big thing for him. He was just like, I'm just gonna invest in so much real estate and just owning properties as many as he can. That'll kind of just give him passive income throughout the remainder of his career and even post football. So common strategy there. But the last question it's one that we always wrap up with, which is, are you familiar with My Cause, My Cleats in the NFL?
I'm not sure I am. I may have seen people with cleats and stuff. I'm not sure I know that. My club. Yeah, I don't ever heard that.
My Cause, My Cleats is you pick a cause and you get to design your cleats and represent that cause and kind of raise awareness for it. And it's something you'll be doing in a couple months now. So do you have, obviously right now it's a big decision, but do you have any causes that you'd be leaning towards to represent?
Just coming off my, just something like I've been through, probably breast cancer awareness, but also like LGBTQ communities as well. That's something I wanted to study, and I did my minor in women gender studies. So one thing that I really took away from school is like toxic masculinity in itself, and just how different emotions can be expressed, especially in the sport of football, which is ironic. But I kind of just was drawn to that aspect of the way that men are raised nowadays can be like aggressiveness, violence, and stuff can be tracked down to just the upbringing and the words we use with one another. So, and that aspect, maybe something along the lines of LGBTQ and raising awareness, being an ally for those communities, but also breast cancer. Yeah, just off the top of my head.
Awesome, man. Well, it was a pleasure talking to you today. Thank you for stopping by. And good luck for these next months. I'll be watching closely for your pro day.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you all for the opportunity again. And good luck in school. And Brandon, for life takes you, brother.